vast majority of failures I've seen with new systems, platforms, migrations haven't actually been the tool's fault. It's been the fact that people haven't bought into it. The training hasn't been done properly. There's been no processes. The proper due diligence wasn't done. The tech most of the time is okay. I don't have any problems where I go, do you know what, you're right, your search tool is awful. Most of the time, actually, your team aren't using it properly.
You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-com strategy, technology and CX-focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialist James Gedd and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-com strategy and leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX. This episode is sponsored by Shopify. Another exciting topic this week. We're talking about we're looking into like tech and digital maturity and knowing when to buy versus build, making sensible tech decisions that are aligned with your brand maturity and growth plans. So there's my really rambling title to the podcast that clearly hasn't been put through ChatGPT. And really happy to welcome someone who I've long admired, who puts out a lot of really smart content, and is recognised as a really strong e-com leader, who's ex-head of ecom for Opoly and is now a strategic consultant. I can't even say strategic this morning, Lauren. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for that.
I've really enjoyed like watching your like reading your content on LinkedIn. You put a lot of interesting stuff, and I know you're working with some interesting projects now. So do you want to give people who don't know you a bit of introduction to you, your ecom journey, and what you're now focused on?
Yeah, I can do. I have been in the kind of digital space in general for about 6 to 7 years now. Started while I was at uni. I started doing some freelance and agency side work in paid social, paid search, email, CRM, that kind of side of things, and then just slowly crept my way into like, can I take on SEO, and can I do web content, and like what can I take on? So I did that for a couple of years, and then COVID hit and I like graduated in nice forms with absolutely no graduation, and started at Opoly full time as soon as I finished uni. So worked agency side and freelance before that, and then went full time with Opoly. It was my first kind of major full time role. Doing the same kind of thing, digital, paid, SEO, CRM, all that kind of fun stuff. I owned the Blow & Tea brand, which was a new brand at the time, which was really great because it was COVID and everyone wanted to buy leggings and stuff, and it was an activewear brand, so it was really fun and fast growing, and learned a lot. And thankfully, it was on Shopify. Opoly at the time was on actually doing a migration between M1 and M2, which was meaty. And we launched Blow & Tea on Shopify and just went, oh my God, this is the way to go. So within a couple of months of being on M2, I then got involved with Opoly migrating onto Shopify, and that was kind of my first foray into ecom, doing third-party app integrations and onboardings and things like that. And then it just slowly went from there. I started to migrate from digital over to full ecom, projects, third parties, migrations, re-platforms, all that kind of stuff was what I liked. And then in 2022, about 3-ish years ago, we formalised it into a proper digital product owner role. So I took ownership of all the kind of roadmaps, anything that was upcoming, any technical kind of changes we had to make, all of our web development, and all of that for a couple of years. And then last year, kind of just pre-Black Friday 2024, I was asked to kind of head up the ecom function as well and take over what was already an existing ecom team and bring that into a all-encompassing group of people who look after everything front end. So rather than having tech sitting separately to ecom and stuff, we just pulled it all together and had like operational ecom, merchant, trading, and optimization, and everything all sitting under one umbrella. So that was how I spent the last year. And then since October, I've been doing some consultant stuff with brands and SaaS partners and agencies, and basically using my experience and what I've learned to be like, how do we win in the Shopify ecosystem? What do you need to do? Who do you need to work with? How do we approach things, and how we work with Shopify in the ever kind of changing world we're in. So taking 6 or 7 years of kind of this and a lot of change and a lot of growth and stuff to try and help maybe brands that are where Opoly was when I first joined. I probably watched Opoly go from like 30 million-ish to like 120, 130, 140 million. And I loved that stage of growth. That kind of earlier, like the kind of grittier a little bit, like kind of always changing and fast growth stage was like my favourite part. So I'm enjoying now going back and speaking to brands who are at that stage and being like, here's what we did, or here's what we didn't do. So yeah, that's been my last kind of month or two, and it's really enjoyable.
Nice. I love it because not many people say, I just love the replatforming, because so many people find it really, because we know, right? If you've been through it, and I've been through it so many times on so many different platforms now, that it's not stress-free. It's not problem-free. There are always unknown unknowns that hit you. There's always a cost that creeps up that was unforeseen, where you have to dip into. There's all these dynamics but I think if you have the right sick, twisted mentality, then actually it's a really enjoyable process to go through.
It's fun at the end when you go, oh my goodness, thank God I don't need to do that thing anymore that I really wanted.
Exactly. Well, as for me though, the only problem is now you've joined me in consultancy world is when your clients say yes, you go, yes, we've done that. When you're a consultant who does this day in, day out, you go, yeah, I've got the next one.
Another one.
It's like, oh, okay, I'll sleep in January. It's okay. Yeah. But I'm really glad you joined us today, because it's really important, I think, having people who've been through growth, who've been through technology decisions, who've learned from mistakes, learned from successes, who can give objective advice, because no one knows everything. There's no perfect tech stack for every business, and there's nuance in decision making, and that's what we want to get into today. So, and I think you probably came into the industry at a very different point to me when I came in a long time ago as old man of e-commerce. Because out in the day when you didn't have modern SaaS platforms, and so much was custom built, and Christ, to see the drop in pain threshold of migrations, and it's still not simple, but just certain elements in tech stacks that are just work now, is quite incredible actually. So let's get into the first question. So a big one I think that people struggle with is about when they should invest in tech, and what type of tech, and how the size of business impacts this, because you could have a fast growth business that is really not complex and a fast growth business that is complex. So from your experience, having gone through this journey, you said from 30 million to like 120 plus million at Opoly, how does the level of ecom maturity and your like existing team size and skills impact tech stack decisions?
I think it does massively. I've seen Opoly at massively different stages. Like, I've been in tech teams of like just me and kind of 2 IT guys handling everything from like hardware breaking and people spilling coffee on their laptops to Wi-Fi cabling, connectivity, and everything to like migrations and replatforms, like and front end development work between me and a couple of IT guys. A couple of years ago when I first joined the tech team, there would have been like 3 of us at the time, and I actually got to a point where we had a consultant, long-suffering consultant who's worked with us for years, and at one point it was just me and him, and I was like, Andy, you can take all the back-end stuff, that's what you do. I'll do the front end, because it was the only way to split it, because there was not enough of us to, have people properly sitting with defined remits and stuff for what they were looking after. So I've seen us be like that, and in that case, when you're one person looking after something so huge and something which is obviously not at a small scale, you don't really have the time to do everything in depth, and you do need sometimes just the speed and agility and ease of like, I can download an app to do that for me and I don't need to do it myself, which is fantastic. Like, I think when we were definitely that scrappier stage, we needed speed. We needed simplicity. We needed quick time to value. We relied a lot on SaaS partners, and I would be very open and honest with them in discussions and say, I don't have the time to handhold you during this process or to sit and nurture this thing like it's my child. I need you to do it. Like, and if you want to, and flex your muscles a little bit, I'd be like, if you want to work with Opoly and you want this contract, like, you're going to need to, I need decent customer support. I need someone who's going to come in and be proactive in helping me, because I'm one person and I don't have enough time. And that was kind of my work cry for years. But now the tech team at Opoly are, it's much more built out. It's a much larger, stronger team. We've got a CTO, we've got engineers, and keep saying we. They have got engineers and BAs and PMs and all these people who can properly sit and make these complex decisions, and also people with very different backgrounds, like people who have worked at really large, complex businesses before who haven't came from the Shopify ecosystem. So it's quite good to have people. I'll be like, just download an app. We've done that so easily a couple of years ago. Just download an app. And then someone else will be like, no, we don't need to do that. And actually, when you've got that kind of breadth of experience and decision making, you do sit and think about it a little bit more. And when you've got the time to afford to be able to do that, like to say to someone, which we didn't have a couple of years ago, can you sit and spend a couple of days or even a week this week just proper analysing and getting into this decision and thinking about all the possible options and engaging with suppliers and blah, blah, blah. Lauren 3-4 years ago didn't have that time, and it was, I need this, I need it yesterday, get it done. Right, okay, I've downloaded the app, I've tested it, it's cool, it's live. Like, and it's totally different when you're at that different stage of maturity. And I think if I told like the CTO Polly that I was going to do that now, he would be like, what? What are you doing? Like, so it's massively different. But I think the key thing for Polly that I've seen as a benefit of them, they've grown out that tech team. We didn't, and we definitely tried not to adopt enterprise tech before we needed it. Because I think if me and, a couple of years ago, being one of the only people in that tech team, had started to adopt enterprise tech before I needed it, it would have been, a bit of a disaster. We wouldn't have been mature enough to do it. We would have been nowhere near ready. Whereas now the team are, and they've got people who can sit and project manage things and stuff like that and make those kind of more complex decisions. At the time, when it was just me, it was get it done quickly. It's so easy. And now, they're a bit more mature, and they don't need to do things as scrappily as we did them a couple of years ago.
What do Mattel, Victoria Beckham, Sennheiser and Glossier all have in common? They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet. It also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. Shopify, powering the future of enterprise commerce. Find out more at shopify.com/enterprise.
Yeah, do you know what? It was Paul who first introduced me to the word scrappy. And I kind of like it because at first I thought that makes it sound like it's not controlled and it's not smart, but actually it's not. It's more about the style in which you adopt things, and it's tactical more than strategic, right? And I think this is the thing I see as well is, let's say the example of product discovery, search, merch, recommendations, etc. At an early stage, the thought of a big license is probably budget prohibitive, but implementation, not having the expertise to think about how that is properly integrated, probably needs somebody with good engineering skills from an API point of view to connect that intelligently so that it doesn't have a massive performance impact on the front end, that the data flows are correct into others. And you suddenly realize, like you said, BA, PMs, whatever it is, you need more resource, and you need to think about the future adoption of the product roadmap, because you can't do all at once. And if you get all these other decisions, whereas, do you know what? I'm going to pick Shopify, pick BigCommerce, pick whoever it is. Okay, I'll use the native search because it does 50% and it's free. Great. I'll plug in a simple merchandising tool that helps me manage the product grid. And I've already got more than I've got now. And I can do that for a few £1,000 plus a couple £100 a month. Job done.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think sometimes I want the optimal decision slows people down from going, do you know what? Having it better than I've got it now for a low cost is good enough for the next 12 months.
100%. And I think if you get yourself really tied down on what the best possible scenario is, and then this is exactly what I need, and this is all of my requirements all came true all at once, and, like 90% of the chance it's never going to happen, but also I would say 90% of the time you don't need it at that point in time. You really don't, and you're never going to, like, someone, and I get really wary of salespeople as well, that someone could come in and absolutely promise you the world and promise you a dream, and when you are that slightly more immature brand and you're just like me, I was like, I need these SaaS partners to come in and help me, and at the time we really, really did. But I do worry that some people might be slightly taken advantage of by a salesperson coming in and promising them a dream and promising them, I will solve all of your problems instantly right now. And you get like 2 months in and you go, wait a minute, like, this is really hard and this requires loads of management and I don't have all these things that I wanted. And they're like, oh, that's 6 months down the roadmap, or that's a professional service. And you start to go, oh my God, I've not actually, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And that worries me a little bit. And we definitely I would say we probably got stung by that a few times. And it does take, like, I remember even in this past year, I would go into calls with vendors and stuff like that, and I'd be like, can I have a BA come into the call with me? Like, can I have someone come in with me just to have a couple of heads to put together to be like, is this 100% what we need? Have we done the due diligence properly? Have we gathered requirements? And Have we challenged them correctly and asked the right questions? And do we get clarity on A, B, and C? A couple of years ago, I didn't have the skill set or the resource or anything to do that. And I did have to be a bit more trusting and a bit more scrappy. And that now I would go back and really strongly say to people, like I speak to people all the time who are like, we want to move tools. I hate our search and merch tool. It's awful. And I need to change and I want a new one. And I'm like, right, okay, let's sit and think about this first, because you're going to go into these sales calls and be lied to. And I really don't want that to happen to you. And also you are at this stage of growth and you've got one person in your team, and this person's going to come in and tell you that this huge, amazing, beautiful enterprise piece of technology can do the job for you, and it can. It needs more people to manage it. And I think some people get this perception of like, oh, well, I'll pay for the technology, and if the technology's better, then it'll do a better job. When in actual fact, the vast majority of failures I've seen with new systems, re-platforms, migrations, haven't actually been the tool's fault. It's been the fact that the people haven't bought into it. The training hasn't been done properly. There's been no processes. The proper due diligence wasn't done. The tech most of the time is okay. I don't ever see many problems where I go, do you know what? You're right. Your search tool is awful. Like most of the time I'm like, actually your team aren't using it properly, or you've got something like we've done it as well. We used Algolia, and we didn't have time to give, multiple people to sit and tune Algolia properly and sit and work on the back end and sit and do rules. And I've fed back to Algolia as well. The A/B testing process is laborious and really difficult. And we wanted to be fast and agile and quick to doing things. We didn't have the people resource to sit in. It was an incredible tool and it done everything we needed to do, but we didn't have the time to give it. So sometimes I worry that people get into if I just buy this huge, fantastic piece of technology that gives me everything I want, it'll be like a magic wand. And I'm like, no, you're going to have to give, what your one team member's resource for 3 months to get this right. And that's hard. That's the hard bit to try and explain to people, not the technology, really. It's the people in the process.
Yeah, I think that's such a critical point is if you haven't done your homework about what are the use cases that are driving the need to adopt tech, and then explored how you would execute on those, and what is tech versus what is process and resource to set things up and manage things. That is the critical point. And I've seen this too many times as well, where the issue is capability, process, time, whatever it is, it's internal. Or it's lack of understanding what impacts successful outcomes through algorithms on search. And I've had people before, pick your tool, Algolia, Klaviyo, which is now Athos, search, but any tool that's got really good capability, and someone saying tool's rubbish, the quality of search results are rubbish, and then actually the issue is the quality of the product data and the content you're feeding it, and the fact that you haven't fine-tuned and tweaked algorithms and business rules and controls. So yes, you're giving it crap to surface in the results, and that's why you have compromises. Actually, if you trained it better and gave it better quality data, the tool can do it, because all of them can do like relevancy matches, multi-attribute searches to different degrees. So yeah, I think that's such an important point to make.
Yeah, I think so.
But coming back to your point you said about it, that kind of like working agile, adding apps, moving quickly rather than thinking about that investment enterprise tech in the early stages. One of the things I see is there's a challenge here, because in the app stores, and Shopify is the leader with a volume of apps, but Centra's building out its app store, BigCommerce has got a significant app store. I mean, all of them, Adobe's got apps in different ways. It's quite easy now, because the data integration is mainly done, to go, right, okay, I'll use that for loyalty, I'll use that for referrals, I'll use that for search, for image optimize, whatever it might be. And that can lead to sticking something in because it's quick and easy without necessarily getting it right. And there can be side effects there. How do you advise people? How do you go about selecting apps? Because there are so many.
I think it's a tough one. I would say I like going out, I like researching, I like going out to market, I like speaking to people, and saying, what do you use? I want to go out and get a real understanding of what's new and what's out there. But once you actually start speaking, I get demos of things all the time. I just message people and be like, I like what you do. Can I get a demo? I want to see it and I want to challenge you and want to ask questions, which is why the kind of SaaS advisory stuff is appealing so much to me, because I've basically done it through my full job at O'Bolly. I think once you actually get into the nitty gritty, the questions that I asked every single time were about mainly performance. I was very front end focused. I thought about the website. I thought about how the website operated and looked, and I wanted the customer experience when they landed on our website to be fantastic, as well as the operator experience on the back end to be fantastic. But performance impact on the website is the customer experience. My work cry was, do not add more bells and whistles. And I think if an app is functional, it's different, right? If an app delivers a functional requirement that you need to run your website, it's different. But if an app is like something nice and fancy, like on your website, on your front end, it's one of the sexier bits, but it's going to lower the speed of your website by 2 seconds. There's no point. No one's going to see it because they're going to bounce off your website instantly because it takes so long to load. I think when I started working on Opoly, I basically moaned my way into doing a bit of SEO because I was doing paid and I was spending a lot of money sending traffic to the website, and the average load speed for PLP was like 13 seconds. And I was like, right. And then, we're getting asked internally, this brand are doing this thing and someone else is doing this, and I saw this new piece of technology and this app that you can do that like allows you to flip the grid and do that. And I'd be like, what's the point? While it takes 12 seconds to load, no one's going to see it. Like, no one's going to get there. Like, let's sort the basics first and not add anything until I have absolutely scrutinized these people and said, can you confirm to me it won't add anything to the load speed of our website? And we'd put it on staging and stuff and check and be really, really rigorous about that, because to me, that is number one. There is no point in putting something on the website. We remember we had a chatbot that was on the website, and when we analysed the kind of load speed and what was impacting load speed, it was having a much larger impact than Shopify itself. And we think it was adding something like 3 to 3.5 seconds to the load speed of the website, and Lighthouse scores and stuff, because it was so large. And I'm like, that is something for me. Usually when things are optimized for Shopify and optimized for e-commerce and things, they do tell you they've done as much as they can to not impact your website. But you really need to drill down into that because it's the biggest one. I think the next one for me would be overlap, and just doing some sort of analysis or grid of like, what does this tool deliver versus what we already have. People get really caught up on, there's this new piece of technology, I'm going to download this app, and I'll be like, it does A/B testing. We've got something that does A/B testing. Or it does personalization. This would allow you to personalize the user's website experience. Cool. So does native meta fields. Do we need it? Like, and that's the thing, because you get really excited by these bells and whistles and fancy things, and then you go, actually, if I drill down into it, might add a second or two to the load speed of the website, and there's something else that already does it. Yeah, that shiny thing is really cool, but do we need it? No. And then probably data. We had a lot of different tools, obviously, that we needed over the years. And I would say probably because we matured faster than Shopify grew out its native solutions for things. So we had to buy in things that Shopify weren't offering us, and the enterprise kind of tools and stuff we had weren't doing. So we had to build apps. But it's really annoying when those apps don't speak to each other. Most of the time in the Shopify ecosystem, I'm going, it's native Shopify and integrates with Shopify really nicely. Does it integrate with everything else? Like, and if it's an app, how complex is the kind of analytics and the back-end structure of the app? Can we sync it into Snowflake and put it into our data warehouse and use that data? Or does it require manual CSV exports? Which realistically, everyone's really busy and no one's going to sit and remember every day to download the CSV of that day's data from that app. Like, so do you end up with really good, intelligent data in these apps that do really cool things, but it all sits in individual Shopify stores and individual apps and not really doing anything for you? So that's kind of how selective I am. I think performance on the front end and customer experience, user experience in the back end. Is it slow? Is it clunky? I don't want my team to be sitting doing things that are boring, monotonous. I want it to be as automated as possible. I want to make sure there's no overlap with other tools. But if someone comes to me from finance and says, you're spending X amount of money on technology, some of that might not be needed. If I just start adding, and not actually thinking, now that we've got this, or now that Shopify does this, I can get rid of that thing we're paying a couple of grand a month for. So that was a continual, like every couple of months, going through, making sure there was no overlap. And if someone did want to buy in something, you need to make sure it stands alone. It's got a really strong benefit. Data flows in and out of it nicely. It's a really cool app. And that's the kind of process I would go through in my head before buying anything. And that's even with something as simple as an app. Obviously, if you're buying something that's a proper, like onboarding an Algolia, a Nosto, a Bloomreach, anything like that, it's a massive process that you need to go through. But even just an app, there's questions you have to ask yourself, or you're going to end up with a massively bloated app ecosystem and a list of 40 apps on your Shopify store that half people won't even know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that, the performance bit's critical, and the essential side of installing things on sandboxes and properly validating what impact it has on, does it create any glitches from a UX on the front end? Is it slowing stuff down? The bit that I think that people don't spend enough time on is how will we use it? And does it give us what we want? Because it's, you will have this all the time. People go, we got an app for that. All right, so you got a Shopify app or a BigCommerce app, you got an app. It integrates natively, right? And it can do everything we want. Yeah. And then when you tease it apart, it's an exceptionally basic app. And it doesn't do all of the functions that the platform natively can do the third party system can do within the specific ecom platform that it's built an app for, because it built an app just to tick the box and go, I'm in the app store. Yeah. And then you have all these gaps where you go, right, so we're going to have to do some custom API work. Or we can't actually do that. We can't feasibly make that work because it's going to be cost prohibitive, or it's going to screw up page load. And then you start realizing that getting an app is easy. Getting the right one is challenging.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk about the build versus buy, which is one of the kind of like rambling bits in my topic when I introduced it, is because coming back to your point before, that you getting in extra tech is sometimes a really sensible thing to do, and it fast tracks capability, but it might not necessarily be the most cost effective way. How do you go about deciding when you should build? So either using existing capability, but extending it and building on top of it. You mentioned meta fields in Shopify, for example, and every platform's got its custom fields that you could build out and then use those data endpoints to do things on the front end. When does custom build make sense? And what have you got some examples where you run, do you know what? We don't need a third party tech. We just need to extend what we've currently got or build on top of it.
Yeah, I think it depends how complex the solution is for me, or how complex the problem is that you're trying to find a solution for. So if it's something to meet something really that's small, I'm like, think app first. If it's something that you know is going to be quite a large undertaking or a complex problem, you're going to do an extra level of due diligence anyway. So, for example, a PIM, we knew a couple of years ago, where like product data is in a bit of a mess, and if we need to grow, and we see all these things coming in the future with like digital product passports and things like that, where we know that product data is going to have to be a lot cleaner and in a lot bit better kind of situation. Our product data lived in like Airtable boards and Excel spreadsheets and things like that, and we knew it needed an overhaul. We went to market and selected a market leader PIM, and we went, yep, 100%, we will get this PIM. They will sort everything for us. It will be so easy. They work with so many cool clients, like 100%, that's fine. But we didn't actually go deep enough on the due diligence to know and go, before we onboard this, we've got a massive data cleanse exercise to do. We need to properly map out all of our systems, all of our processes, all of our data, where it goes, where it lives, who's responsible for what, where the data comes from, what the requirements of the data within our different systems are. We had none of that. We just thought we'll be able to get a PIM and we'll give them an export of all of our products, and then they can take it and we'll just run everything through that, and probably quite naively thought it would be easy. And after doing the proper due diligence, really going through data, like we realised that an off-the-shelf solution wasn't going to work for us, and we had so many individual niche requirements and processes, because Poly is very vertically integrated. We own our own factories. Everything is completely like custom designed and produced in-house, and we have quite a niche product flow from an idea on a Trello board somewhere all the way through all these different flows that it goes through, and the off-the-shelf solutions just didn't fit. And we made a decision to custom build a PIM on Airtable, but with our own engineers and stuff, and build it out fully from ideation stage all the way through factories, merchandising, buying, pricing, copywriting, e-com, everything. We fully built it to suit the exact flows that we worked on as a business already, but made them better. And we know that, there was absolutely no way that we could have done that through the PIM that we were just going to try and buy in and then try and mold ourselves to. That would have been a much more painful process, I think, trying to make our data fit that system and make our processes and our teams buy into that system and go, we need you to stop doing what you're doing now, change it all completely, change the format and everything out of all of your full job, put it in this new system. You're going to be doing it at different times, different data. Everything would have changed. And what we've done instead is okay, here's what you currently do that's been working for years, but we're going to make it better. And we're going to put some more data controls on it, make it a bit more tightly controlled. We're going to automate boring things and automate HS codes and all that kind of stuff and the things that can go wrong. And we're going to test from this PIM to every one of our systems, to our warehouse management system, to Shopify, to our NetSuite, to everything like that. It's going to be fully tested. We're going to take out the human error and make it really fantastic, to be honest. It was incredible once it went live. We would never have got that level of buy-in, I think, from the teams and engagement and understanding and everything if we had just went, here's an off-the-shelf solution that you need to now mold yourself to. Because that process underpinned everything that we did as a business. And also we built it on Airtable, which is the system that underpinned everything that we did as a business as well. Airtable was used across marketing, across production planning, everything. Every part of our business touched Airtable. So we then used a system that the team already knew and used a fantastic team of engineers and BAs and PMs to create a PIM system that really worked for people. And that, I think, taking people on the journey with you, but it really helped, because I think if we had tried to get a kind of standard off-the-shelf PIM solution, we'd probably still be here now, a couple of years later, talking about it, and not actually getting it done. Whereas we'd fully done that ourselves, and we made it super niche to us, completely shaped it in a way that a custom build is all that would have been able to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a few projects I've been on recently where building something custom rather than using a third party has been the right way to go forward. An agency I work with who did it for in pet food around based on, it's like a almost like a quiz based of what age your pet, what type of pet, how active it is, how much food does it need, basically based on the weight of it. And that was built in Superbase from the database point of view. So don't try and bend a third party product selector to do the config, because to do the journey is fine, but the complex data calculations just is not natively built to do. Well, actually, if you've got a fully controllable database where you can programmatically handle that, and that's got a really good API connectivity with your ecom platform, the speed of that is actually far quicker.
Far better.
And then it's easier to maintain because you've got database input tables, and when that input changes, you just change the variable. As in, you can store that. If this is built on Shopify, you can store that as custom metadata in Shopify. Business can just update that. It's not a technical solution. They can go in and change the value from X to Y. That automatically feeds through to the database to automatically change to the account. So yeah, there are times when you're right, then going custom, provided that you have the engineers who understand what they're doing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if for the non-technical, like Peter, obviously I don't come from a technical kind of development background. I've worked in technology now for a couple of years, but was always used to being the non-technical person in the room, or the least technical person in the room. Shopify, when, like I said, I worked on Shopify with Bow & T straight away. As soon as I joined Dopoly, and then we migrated Dopoly over. Part of the reason we did that was because it democratized so much of that requirement for engineers and stuff like that. So for the less involved stuff, the stuff where you don't need an engineer, or you don't think you need an engineer, you probably still do, but someone somewhere in a technical-ish role, or in a product role or whatever can do a lot on Shopify that I think you probably can't do on other platforms. I think Shopify has increased the ease of access into data and into apps. And like for me, I was able to do stuff, deploy stuff, get stuff out much faster than, using things like Shopify apps, but even using Shopify natively, than I would have been able to do if everything was a custom built tech stack. That is amazing if it's controlled, and if it is someone, not to blow my own trumpet, it definitely didn't need to be me, but someone in a product role who owns that and looks after it and can understand what apps are being used and what data there is and what custom meta fields and stuff we've got and all that. Because if you don't, and if you open that access completely, now it was amazing for Opoly that we were able to bring in marketing people and customer service people and show them analytics and get them using the back end of Shopify. But if everyone could download apps, and if everyone could create custom data and meta fields and meta objects and stuff, it would have been a mess. And that is not any criticism to it, because the ideas and everything would have been incredible, but it needs to be a little bit controlled, because you can just start to bloat things and things can just start to go a bit awry. we used meta fields and meta objects and stuff quite a lot, and particularly this year we started to migrate things back from like custom fields apps and stuff into like native Shopify meta fields. And you can see the excitement in people when they start to go, oh my God, there's so many possibilities here. There's so many things that we can do. And there is so much that you can do with it. And I love the fact that people got that. And we're starting to think, oh, I could create a meta field for the restock date of that product and pull that through from this system and then show that on the front end and blah, blah, blah. And it's so quick time to value to do that. And I can be like, yeah, Shopify does that for you now natively. You can do this and you can integrate and we can pull it through the PIM, and you get really excited. But then something breaks or something changes and all of a sudden these simple things actually become quite complex. So it's trying to find that nice balance of doing things yourself, either through a custom build or through Shopify natively with a bit of configuration, because with flows and APIs and stuff like you've said, there is a hell of a lot you can do now with Shopify. But still having a little bit of control over it so that someone doesn't go, what does this meta field do? This meta field's flowing into Algolia, but I don't know what it is. Like, you never want to get to that point where you're like, someone's made a random, so we've got random data flowing all over the place. So just because we've democratized it and it's amazing and we want people to be really engaged by it and love it and want, have the ideas and that agility and stuff, I think is something that you don't really want to lose as you start to, we don't want to add loads of red tape as we grow because it becomes really boring for people, but you need to safeguard things a little bit just so that it isn't really messy.
Yeah, and this is why I love platforms like Centra as well, because they have that concept of custom fields. They have their equivalent of like a rule builder, which allows you to create flows and connectivity between data points. And I think the key thing though is, you touched upon it earlier, is about somebody needs to own what you have and have that mapping. And I do it on every project I work on, regardless of platform, is a product, like a data management doc, which defines all of the meta fields. Like, a lot of them are customer facing. They do things on like a PDP, for example, or a PLP, but you also have the systemic ones that are needed. I've got one client where actually they need to batch that in the order files. They need to know what batch products are related to, because that has an impact on order management flows. Therefore, when products are created, they need to be assigned to, there's 3 different types of batches, depending on the delivery type, like specialist, 2-man, etc.
Yep.
And that's just one very simple systemic data field that the customer never sees, but it's required for back office systems. But it's got to be documented. There's got to be a reference point that anyone go to at any point, because if the person, you, me, whoever's doing it, leaves a business or a project, you can't have a data silo and a knowledge silo. It has to be democratized, that in knowledge and intelligence as well.
Yeah. And even like with Airtable, I mean, I'm used to using Shopify and Airtable, but the access requirements and stuff as well. Like, at one point we realized when we were starting to look at the PIM requirements, that was the most important thing for us to try and lock down, because we went, someone who's got full access to this database of all of our product data could just select and delete it all. And then we realized we were creating these meta fields that were customer facing, that would have an impact on the front end, or that were flowing into systems like Algolia to power search, or into Nosto for merchandising, or all of these different systems that we were using. We were underpinning them and really supporting them and making them much better by using Shopify native functionality. But I'm going, someone with that level of Shopify access could just go in and delete that and break it. Or even, in fact, we had a really, not a bad Airtable one, but I'd started getting messages from customer service ones like, the restock dates that are shown on the front end are all showing dates in the past. How can this be? And I was like, no, we've got a solution in place to make sure that if the date has passed, the restock date disappears, and if the product, and what has happened. And it just turned out that somewhere back in the Airtable flow, the formula that was powering the restock date in Airtable, and something had been changed from like China warehouse to China or something, and it had broken a full flow, it had broken all of our formulas, and that was pulling through and fantastically syncing automatically from Airtable into Shopify and displaying automatically on the front end. And then we were getting customers reaching out going, that says it's going to be delivered in 2023. Like, and I'm like, and these kind of things. And if I didn't know how we had built that and how that all worked, and then someone would have been sitting somewhere like, what is going on? So that, I think it's fantastic that we have these systems, low code, no code systems, really easy integrated, fantastic and easily accessible custom data and things like that. And to be honest, we ran our full Shopify store on meta fields, and towards the end there when I was leaving, meta objects. We had meta objects powering things, especially related to promos and stuff, using tags to power messaging across the site and stuff, which it was fantastically easy for me to go in and manage, and it was amazing to not have to ask a developer to do everything for me. Can you put us something on a PDP for this, promo that we're doing? All that kind of stuff was fantastic. But I do think that you can add extensibility and add complexity to the platform so easily now that is it too easy sometimes? And is there things like sometimes I would say things and I'd go, I can do it. My boss would ask me to do something like, can you put this thing on the PDP? Someone wants this, but it's been a request from whatever team, blah, blah, blah. And I would roadmap it and all the rest of it. But if it was easy, I'd just go, I can do that for you today if you want. And, it kind of defeats the purpose of doing all that analysis and making sure that everything's considered and whatever, because it's so easy. I'm like, I was managed the roadmap, and I had at any given time up to maybe 2 months, 3 months worth of work on a roadmap at a time, and we'd constantly cycle it and groom the backlog and all that. But something would come in that was easy and I'd go, drop me just to put it live this morning.
I know it's, this is the whole with great power comes great responsibility, and I think this comes down to governance, and I've noticed this in fast growth, predominantly D2C brands in the SaaS space, and mainly they're on Shopify, is they've come from a non-corporate, non-governance world. Therefore, and governance is often people go, it's going to ruin, it's going to be horrific, we won't get anything done. And actually, no, governance is about helping you do things smarter and giving you control. And governance in a 10 million business is very different to governance in a 2 billion, PLC.
Yeah.
But I think this is the bit that's critical when you're working in this environment where it is easy to plug stuff in or make adjustments or add in functionality, is the governance around maintaining roles and permissions and knowing who can and can't do stuff, and the governance around documentation, and the governance around looking at what is our error tracking, what is our alert system, if something goes wrong, how do we know about it? I'm putting this in place, but what's the impact if it cocks up, and how will we know? That's a bit where I think the maturity often doesn't catch up quick enough.
Yeah. And you can end up with a proper Frankenstein as well if you've done that early. Like I was saying, we've done a lot of things before Shopify could do them for us. And now, oh my goodness, if I could start from scratch and get a clean Shopify build, I would just love to use Shopify's native functionality as far as I possibly can and keep things really lean and movable. See something as see the site as a living, breathing thing rather than something that's a big decision and lumping loads of technology and stuff on. But I would absolutely love that to be here's how we start from scratch, and here's a fresh, clean build. Here is exactly how we start doing it. And to me, that would, the things that we've built and added and lumped on over the years, you do need someone to be constantly on top of it and monitoring it to try and fix it. But even then, there's things that I'm you can have a roadmap as long as your arm and there's something that will slip through the cracks. I remember looking one time and finding a random custom app that we had built somewhere in Shopify to link, it was student discount data or something with Klaviyo or something crazy like that. And it's sitting somewhere in Shopify, and you're like, this is what happens when you just bolt on and don't think about the bigger picture, or don't think about it as a one living, breathing thing. Just bolt on all these little things, and down the line I was looking at it going, where is that? What did that even come from? I don't remember even doing that, because it was probably 4 years ago when that was the only way of doing things, and things have changed so quickly. This world that we're in as well, I really struggle with people saying, what's your 3-year roadmap? I really struggled with that, because I was things are changing so fast that I don't want to
tell you 3 years.
Yeah, tell you in 2 years and 10 months or something. I really struggled with working something in for because I've seen the repercussions of us doing things maybe 3-4 years ago. And you really look yourself in, you think, I'm getting a great deal, I'm going to lock into a 3-year contract. And then a couple of years down the line, you go, that feels almost like legacy tech now, because things are going so quickly. And we done the things that we done a couple of years ago, you would never do now. But that's the again, the importance of having someone like a product owner who is on the button of what is going on and what is happening and can keep on top of that. So you can leave things and let them go stagnant. And there's things that sometimes I'd say to the team, if I got a new team member, I'd be rip apart the site, rip apart Shopify, go in and ask me what things are. And because you do get a little bit, and I think this is a good thing, we're doing the consulting now, and you'll know this better than me. I did probably get a little bit stuck in, like, I knew Opoly Shopify like the back of my hand, and you miss things, and you don't, because you think you've got a handle on absolutely everything, but it's so complex and there's so much stuff that I actually loved it when I got someone new and they would come in and go, what does that app do? What does that metafield do? And I'd be like, do you know what? I need to get rid of that. I need to change that. I need to make that better. Because it does take someone just with a fresh set of eyes sometimes coming in and just take a look over what you're doing to go, why have you built that way?
But no single person can ever know everything, get everything right, and remember every decision they've ever made. And anyone who says they can is just, quite frankly, bullshitting you. So
it's probably dangerous if they do, because then
And also, I think as a consultant, the most important thing is to accept that there are people in the room that might be more junior to you who know better than you in some other areas. And that's brilliant, because if every single person, every stakeholder can contribute decisions and inputs to a project, that has to be welcome, because the aim is to make better decisions. And yeah, you're right. But this is why that I come back to governance, and Paul and I laugh about this a lot, because I know I'm the dull man talking about it. But it's and you touched about earlier about like BAs, PMs, and the role they play and how important they are. It's fundamentally somebody as a business scales and becomes more mature and goes from your 30 million to 120 million plus, whatever that scale of growth is. Documentation has to be maintained, systems documentation, which is the bit that's often ignored. And the next time you go to revalidate, someone goes, what's our systems architecture map? You go, I don't know, let's draw one. That ability to go, right, we've added another third party and update the map and update the data flows so that we know what it's doing. And then you can identify whether there's a potential duplication or an issue. But that's the bit that has to be done regularly.
Yeah. And I think it's probably the value of a consultant as well, and I've valued, benefited massively from this over the years, is someone coming in and knowing what stage the business is at and understanding the culture of the business enough to know how to handle that. Like, I know that, now, like I say, the Opoly tech team, for example, has grown massively, and they're really got this fantastic architecture of a team there, and amazing setup and really knowledgeable people and stuff. It is now, as a consultant, I think what we would need to do is go in and understand that and know that they've, like, the Opoly tech team now versus 4 years ago, a consultant would have to come in and act completely differently and know that the decision making and the capacity and the process and the people and stuff are going to be completely different. Because right now I'm speaking to some brands that are a comparable size to Opoly, and I'm speaking to some brands that are a tiny portion of the size of Opoly, and I notice that I'm having to kind of not check myself, but before I go into the conversations, I'm going, get yourself out of the mindset of that 9-figure brand, because it's totally different. I'm thinking, because I've been so used to over the past year or two, the conversations revolving around having people like BAs and PMs and having these more kind of complex structures of teams and things. And sometimes I'm going and speaking to brands where they've got one person working in ecom, and that person working in ecom doesn't have the time or the capacity to sit and go through these complex processes and, I'm saying to them, let's sit and spend a day just mapping out your systems and mapping out your requirements and what you need, blah, blah. And they're going, mate, I've got a day job to do. And that's, I can appreciate that, because that's where I was a few years ago. But understanding as well and being able to explain to people their needs in a nice way. So that company where they might have one person working in ecom, and that one person in ecom is fairly junior. They have grown with the business. They started in customer service. The businesses went online. They're having to start doing ecom stuff, and they're saying, "Oh, we want this fancier, better tool," or we want, they've got these requirements that they want. We don't like the tool that we're currently using. We want something better. And being able to, rather than saying, "Yeah, I've used a better tool and it's much better. You should use that. It'll really help," actually being able to say to them, you don't need that. And before you need that, you need to do the basics, and you need to do some housekeeping, and you need to figure out, are you tuning up your Shopify correctly? Does the data make sense? Do you understand the systems? Do you understand the flow of data? Do you understand? I have this conversation quite a lot, and I've had it over the past kind of 4 to 6 weeks where I've been speaking to brands and stuff, and I actually love it, because I'm like, I feel like I can help here. Growing before you've hit that level of maturity, or adding the complexity before you need to, don't do it, because you'll really end up hurting yourself down the line. Yeah. And it's a difficult one for me. I don't want to ever seem That was my first worry, the first couple of conversations like this I had. I was like, oh, is this going to come across like, are they going to be like, all well and good for you to say, and you're coming from your 9-figure turret, you know what I mean, in that brand where you had all this budget and you had a massive team, and being able to relate and say to people, I'm like, I would much rather tell you what you don't need and tell you what you don't need to spend your money on and where you don't need to spend your time and resource than try and encourage you to spend more than you need to. Or, I mean, like, I think so. There's tools that I think are great. There's tools that I think are fantastic that I really recommend people to use, but it depends on the individual person, the brand, the size of the team. I couldn't sleep at night if I went and told a brand that was doing like 500k yearly turnover or $1 million yearly turnover that they need to go and use a CDP system. I'm like, you don't need it. Use Shopify.
You won't get to use it. I think this for me is a critical thing now in e-com. There are so many tools out there. The connectivity is better than it ever has. Tech's been democratized, like you said before. It's much easier to build tech stacks with less engineers. What you still fundamentally need experienced engineers to stress test and help you make better decisions. That's an absolute no-brainer. But it's the ability to stop and say, why do we need it now? And are we going to get value? What's our time to value from it? Because if I don't have the resource, and your point you made earlier in this discussion about, if I don't have the resource to use 50% of this tool, my time to value is going to be very long and my ROI is going to be crap. And stress testing it. I had this recently with a client I'm talking to at the moment, and they're considering putting a PIM in. And nothing I've seen in the product data suggests they need a PIM. It's single site, UK, no translations, no complexity, no syndication out to like third parties, like retail channel partners, none of that. Product data feeds being done somewhere else. So you just need, it is a Shopify project, could be it could be any SaaS platform, it could be a Centra, a big commerce where they've got a decent product data model. It's like, you just need to set your product data model up correctly. And you need to ensure that the process between ERP and e-com is robust. And you are done. You do not need anything else. You do not need to add a 30 grand a year cost and another tool to a process. And you're right. It's just about knowing the tipping point from when you're getting value from something.
Yeah. And having those honest conversations as well. So I think sometimes people will say, oh, should we not be, and I was here a couple of years ago as well, we were in a massive stage of growth. We were, growing 100% year on year. And it was, should we not be aiming for where we should be in a year or two though, rather than where we are now? And that's a hard decision it's a hard thing to talk around, because you risk buying into technology that you might not need if that growth trajectory doesn't stay up. Things can be so cyclical and trend led and stuff now. Things that become huge for like a year, and probably the businesses and the systems and stuff aren't mature enough and can't cope with that massive stage of growth. Then people get, oh my God, we need to buy all these massive systems and we need to go out and we need to, make all these changes because we're in this huge stage of growth. But there is a risk to that of like, what if that growth doesn't persist then? And like, and that's quite a stressful one. So I remember making that decision with a search tool a couple of years ago, and it was, well, we're massively growing. We should use Algolia. They're the market leader. They're the best search tool. And we started working with Algolia, and that was a decision we made at the time. We got the full business bought in. We said, we need to use a market leading tool. Gymshark use it, blah, blah, blah. All these different references that we had. We searched the web and used Algolia a million different times before we said yes. We were like, yep, we need to use that 100%. And that was a decision we made as a business, but it's quite difficult to know where you are going to be in a year or two's time when you're buying the big bits of technology. And it is a risk. What if that growth didn't sustain? And then we had got into this massive 6-figure contract for search and, tied ourselves in for a couple of years of working with this tool, to then a couple of years' time, we're one of these brands that you see come and go. And you go, and thankfully it probably hasn't been that. And, we didn't have that issue to contend with, but it was always in the back of my mind of like, we're investing so much money into technology. Like, it's a big decision to make. And it's something that for brands that are now, I think because technology has changed so much, where you see these apps popping up, these Shopify native apps, you see these SaaS platforms and stuff coming up that are very AI driven, lean, one-click integrations, which I say through kind of gritted teeth. But you see this kind of, and again, the democratization of technology. If I was a brand that was growing, that was at smaller scale, would I go and would I take the risk to go for this really robust, huge market leader technology that's a huge, well-known name system, or would I take a gamble on one of the smaller guys because technology is changing and growing at such a pace? And I could go, well, I could maybe get that. And like you say, Shopify native. I know people who use Shopify native search very successfully and don't need to use a search tool. And I'm like, that is the decisions that you have to make now, and you have to be comfortable saying, do you want to make this huge investment? Or like you said, do you want to try and tune something that's smaller, that's lower risk, that you don't have to put too much resource and effort into now? Give it 3 to 6 months. See what happens. See if that can fit like 80% of your requirements, even 70%. And then what you have to do is kind of calculate almost a gap analysis of, okay, I've got what I've got now, which I'm paying this for, that does X percent. The other 20% of my requirements that I'm missing, does the cost deliver ROI on that incremental gain? Yes or no? And then that's a decision you have to make. Whereas what you're doing, if you just go straight ahead into I need to buy this technology and I want this, you're comparing it from nothing. Like you can't compare it from absolutely nothing to everything. You need to do some sort of the way and give yourself that. Like if I was speaking to a brand now, I'd be like, you use Shopify? Are you using Shopify flows? Are you using Shopify native apps and searches? And if not, have you tried these apps? They're really low cost or monthly rolling contracts. Try that, see what you can do, see how far it can go before you go and make a big decision. Because I would just hate to encourage people to spend loads and loads and loads on technology when they don't know if they need it yet. No,
exactly. And you know what? This is where I think having the experience, whether you have it in-house or through consultancy, is important because, I've had a conversation recently with somebody who's talking about investment in like a full product discovery engine, want to get all these advanced capabilities. They want to achieve all this with search, and actually when I break it down, what they need is a merchandising tool because search is used on so few sessions and the search is so absolutely basic. It's 1 or 2 keywords. There's no multi-attribute. There's no natural language. The nature of the product set is not a visual-based search. It's not like in a fashion, for example. So all this additional capability is you're not going to get much value from it. You just need a search that works bloody well, has got some basic semantic capability, and you've got a good UI for it. Great. What you need, your collection, your PLP pages are the ones that are getting the traffic, and filters aren't working very well, and your ranking is really poor, and your product placement is poor. Christ, focus your effort on the tools that are really strong in merchandising, and just tick the box and make sure the search that you can validate that it works well. It's that, I think that's what you need, right? You need scrutiny of what is driving the decision first, how to then evaluate, and then that, coming back to your point, that time to value. Am I going to get value from this? Can I justify the cost now?
And I think, is it driving from a place of frustration as well? Like, and it's our job to be the ones who come in, I believe, and say, are you using the tool properly? Or, so for example, hate our search and merch tool. Search and merch is awful. And I used to get this sometimes. Search and merch is terrible. Results are terrible. And you alluded to it earlier, but is it actually the search? Because the tool itself can definitely do relevancy. But if you put crap in, you're going to get crap out. Have you validated that the data is correct? Have you validated, that it's everything in the back end has been tuned as much as it can be? And if that's the case, it might be the tool. But if it's not, and if you look at it and go, how much are your team actually using it? Are the team sitting on the tool? Are they using all the capabilities? Have you had a QBR with your account manager? Do you have an account manager? Is there someone who can come in and tell you that you're not actually using all the functionality properly? Or have you noticed that your team are actually like working around it, working in spreadsheets, not bothering with it? Or, is the analytics really poor? Is that what are they having to export the data manually and they're not really bothered with it and they're not sitting understanding what they need to do? Because half the time, like we alluded to earlier, it's not the tech, it's the tool, or it's not the tech, it's the people. So like a lot of time when I'm having these conversations, I'm like, well, have you used it? And then if it comes out actually no, we're not using that. No, it's a bit clunky. No, we don't like it, blah, blah. Then you start to drill down deeper into the, right, okay, the team don't like it, or the team don't use it because they don't like it, because they were never trained on it. They don't understand how to use it, and it just seems like a useless waste of their day. They're just sitting on this tool and they don't understand the benefit of it. Is that what it is? Right, okay, now let's start looking at the people and process side of it, try and tune it up and make it a bit better, because the people who are, I hate search and merch, I hate this tool, it's useless, it's rubbish, it's blah, blah. Most of the time it comes from a place of frustration. And that might be frustration with the tool. It might be that the back end of the tool is slow as anything, that's slowing them down, they're annoyed. And it might be that they've actually got 200 other jobs to do and it's the lowest priority one because they don't understand the benefit of it. And that's why I've kind of, as I say quite a lot recently, I wouldn't now buy a tool that has a really complex, clunky back end, because I have seen the kind of rain that has on a team. Like sometimes I'll say to a team, well, oh, can you guys sit and spend a bit of time on Algolia today or whatever? And they'll be like, oh, or can you set up that A/B test in Algolia today? And they'll go, oh, it takes forever. And they get annoyed by it. And I can see that with other tools. And I speak to people and I say, oh, do you like that tool? Oh, I hate the analytics. It's murder to get reporting out of. So I just don't do it. And you see that because the operating experience is so important. So actually, I now say to the team, every single demo that I ever took at Opoly, I had my full team sit and listen in, or I would send them notes afterwards. What do you think, guys? You're the ones that are going to be using it. It's all good, well and good for me to sit here. I'm not a daily user of the tool. I want to make it integrate properly and I want to make it work efficiently, but I'm not the day-to-day user. They need to buy into it. They need to be the ones using it, making the most out of it, getting the money's worth. Well, imagine having to turn around to a brand that's hired you as a contractor and say, yeah, I got you this fantastic piece of technology, and them going, yeah, but our team hate it. Team think it's useless and you're wasting your time.
Yeah, adoption is so important. Do you know what, Laura, I could carry on talking for hours about this because it's so important, right? It's there's no right answer, but there's a right process. And I think that hopefully that's what people listening have got from this, that you've got to be able to ask the right questions. And if you don't know the right questions, find someone who can help you to do that, because for a little bit of extra time and effort up front, you'll save yourself a lot of heartache and pain. Look, I really appreciate you coming on, Lauren, and exciting to see that you've gone into the consultancy side as well. I know that you'll be a great value to a lot of brands out there who need this level of advice. And for anyone listening who wants to reach out and talk to either of us more, Lauren's contact details are on the landing page at untitled.ecommerce.fm, and she's also tagged on the episode post when it goes out. So please do reach out and ask any questions, or if you're looking for support, you know where to go. So yeah, thanks, Lauren. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening as always, everyone. Tune in again next week. You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast, hosted by experienced consultants James Gerd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-com strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.